Welcome children to video part 1 of a very interesting and an important topic in grammar, and that is active and passive voice, lesson number 15. In this video you will get to learn how to define what is voice of a verb, differentiate active voice from passive voice, and also how to convert an active voice sentence to passive voice sentence. In this video we will be concentrating on how to convert statements. What are voices of a verb? In grammar, voices of verb tells us whether the subject is performing the action or receiving the action. So on this basis, there are two voices. One is active and the other is passive. Active voice of the verb tells us that the subject is doer of the action or is performing the action. Whereas in passive voice, the verb tells us the subject is receiver of the action, and passive voice focuses on the action, the emphasis on the action, and here emphasis is on the subject. Now the example given below will help you understand better. The example is Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. So here our focus is on Thomas Edison. When we change this sentence into passive voice, the light bulb was invented by Thomas Edison. So here the focus is on the action, that is light bulb was invented. In the next slide, we'll learn the basic difference between active and passive voice. Let us understand the difference between active voice and passive voice with a few more examples. So in the examples under active voice, we will understand that the subject is performing the action. For example, the nurse is giving the medicine. Here, the nurse, which is the subject, is actually performing the action of giving the medicine. Now let's see its passive voice. Passive voice here is the medicine is being given by the nurse. So the medicine, which is the subject, is being given, is actually receiving the action. And here who is performing the action? The object, which is the nurse. So that is why this is passive voice, since our subject is not active. Medicine is not doing any action. Then the second example is he writes a letter to John. Now he is the subject in this sentence and he will carry out the action. Which is the action? Writing. Yes, writing is the verb. So that is why since he is active, is doing the action, it is considered to be active voice. Let's see his passive. A letter is written by him to John. So here a letter, which is the subject, is receiving which action? Action of writing. And who is writing? It is him who is writing. So here in passive voice, a letter, which is a subject, is not doing any action, not performing any action. On the contrary, object is performing the action. So this kind of sentence is said to be in passive voice. Now, when to use active voice? The active voice is less awkward and clearly states relationship between subject and action. So whenever we want to clearly state, we want to establish a relationship between subject and action, we should always preferably use active voice. For example, the review committee has denied your request for funding. Here our focus is on the review committee. Who has denied? It is the review committee. Now let's see. So active statements are actually concise statement and they are focusing, it is focusing on the review committee. Now let's move on to the passive voice. Your request for funding has been denied by the review committee. So here our focus is on the funding or the request being denied. That is why passive voice is used. Now, if you read through this sentence, you will realize that the message is same, but the passive voice, sentence in passive voice appears to be weak and lengthy also. The construction of the sentence, the length of the sentence becomes very, very lengthy. Then active voice sentence pattern propels the reader forward through the writing, and it avoids weak prose. Means to make your writing impressive, we should always prefer active voice over passive voice. Now, when should we use passive voice? These are the situations where we should preferably use passive voice. See, why passive voice is less used, or why we should avoid using passive voice. The reason is it is less direct, means it does not convey the meaning, exact meaning. Then it is less forceful, also not very effective, impressive, and less concise. Concise means the sentences are not very short, they are very lengthy and so difficult to understand as compared to active voice. Now, the first situation when we should preferably use passive voice is when you do not know or do not want to reveal the performer of an action. Now, when you do not know is a situation wherein, suppose there has been a theft in the house, in your neighbor's house, and someone has pickpocketed your father's wallet. Obviously, your father will not know who the thief is, right? The second situation is do not want to reveal the performer of an action. For example, by mistake your best friend has broken the glass of the window pane, and it is your duty, you're the prefect, and it is your duty to inform the class teacher that the window pane has been broken, but you don't wish to reveal the doer of the action, right? So what will you tell? You will tell the class teacher that, miss, the glass of the window pane has been broken, right? So here you are focusing on the process rather than the people. Your concern is that the window pane should be fixed and the glass pieces which are broken should be cleaned so that no one gets hurt. So example of such similar situation is the kidnappers have been caught. Obviously, who will catch the kidnappers? So by the police, whether you write or not, it is understood that only police is going to catch the kidnappers. This is a situation where preferably, or you can use passive voice without using the doer of the action. Then second is when you want to emphasize the receiver of an action. For me, the person who's receiving the action is more important. The brave youngster was rewarded. So for me, it is important to highlight the brave youngster because it is this brave youngster who has received the reward. Then the third is when the agent is unknown, is unimportant also, or obvious from the context. Even in a situation like an accident, you don't know, hit and run cases, right? So you actually, most of the time we don't know who caused that particular accidents. In such situations we should use passive voice. Now, one mandatory condition for passive voice or to be able to convert active into passive is that the verb should be transitive. Otherwise, we will not be able to change active into passive. So sentences which have intransitive verbs like sleep, here I have just include them, arrive, sleep, rain, die. These actions do not get transferred on any objects. We cannot change such sentences into passive. Children, the steps to convert active into passive is very, very easy, as you can see here. The very common rule first is bring the object first. Object of active sentence. This is the object, this is the subject, and this is the verb. So we will bring the object first of the active voice. Then we have to use the correct be form, right? So since the first sentence is in simple present tense, the verb, helping verb should also be in simple present tense, and that is. Then the action verb, we have to use V3 form of the verb. So V3 form of the verb help is helped, right? Then after which it is always important to use by and plus subject of the active sentence, right? Active voice. These were the simple steps, very, very simple. Then these are the two important things that you should remember, children. First is whenever we are changing a sentence from active to passive, the tense should remain the same. Simple present tense should remain simple present, simple past into simple past only. And the second important point is the meaning of the sentence should not change. So the common structure of a sentence belonging to passive voice is this, and which is here object plus be form of the verb plus V3 form of the verb plus by plus subject. Now, children, this is a table which will help you learn how subjective pronouns change into objective pronouns when we change active voice into passive voice. Subject of active voice will become object in passive voice. So, I will change to me. Then we changes to us. You remains the same. They becomes them. He becomes him. She becomes her. Ram, the name of course will not change. Book, which is name of a noun, it's a noun, so it will remain the same. So this table should be thorough. It should be on your tips, and it will make your process of changing active into passive very easy and quick. In case there are two objects in a sentence, like in these two, number one and number two, if you observe, there are two objects, like she told us a story. Us is answering to the question whom, so this is indirect object, and she told what? A story, so this is direct object, a story. So we have a choice, either to begin the sentence with indirect object or direct object as done here. These two sentences are passive, right? So we were told a story by her, or a story was told to us by her. Then the second one, the story has taught whom taught us. So this is indirect object, okay? And taught what? A good lesson. So this is direct object, right? So either we can say that there are two ways of changing this active voice into passive. The first one is we have been taught a good lesson by the story, or a good lesson has been taught to us by the story. Now let us take a quick practice session to understand whether we are able to identify the voice of the given sentences or not. Label the following sentences active or passive. Lewis made the chocolate cake. Now, since Lewis is making the cake, then this is of course active voice. The chocolate cake was made by Lewis. Now, by is an indication. Very easy for me to identify that this is passive, right? Then the package was advertised by the travel agent. Here, by, of course, again an indication. So, this is going to be passive voice, right? The travel agent advertised the package. Of course, travel agent is actively advertising. So, this becomes active voice. Then, the chain was broken by again is a hint that it is a sentence of passive voice. My brother broke the chain on my bike. So who is doing the action of breaking? My brother broke. Who broke my brother? So it is active. Next is I hemmed the prom dress. So I is active here, doing the action. Active. Subject is active. The prom dress was hemmed by me. Of course, by is a hint. So a sentence with by will be passive voice most of the time. The pencil on the floor was broken by him. Again, the pencil on the floor was broken. Pencil was broken. The pencil did not break him. So this is why it is passive voice. And last, he broke the pencil on the floor. He is actually the doer of the action, breaking the pencil. So this is active voice. So this is it in video part 1. In video part 2 of voice, we will be learning the rules how to change a statement which is an active voice into passive voice. Thank you.